They laughed at him, belittled his humble beach restaurant, and humiliated him in front of everyone, all from a group of tourists who thought they were rich. But when his billionaire son found out the truth, he orchestrated a twist that would blow everyone away. The morning sun blazed over Ipanema Beach as Carlos wiped down the tables of his small restaurant, the same way he had done for the past 15 years. The blue and white checkered tablecloths fluttered in the ocean breeze as breakfast customers began trickling in. A group of loud American tourists occupied the largest table, 3 couples fresh off a luxury cruise ship, designer bags and expensive watches on full display. Their voices carried across the restaurant as they complained about the menu being in Portuguese. "English? Do you speak English?" One of the men snapped his fingers at Carlos, not bothering to look up from his phone. "Yes, sir. I can help translate the menu," Carlos responded with his usual patience. "Well, thank God for that." One of the women rolled her eyes. "I was beginning to think this place was completely primitive." Carlos maintained his professional demeanor as he explained the traditional Brazilian breakfast options, but when he brought their food, all hell broke loose. "This is not what I ordered," the first man exploded, shoving his plate away. "And look at this place, it's filthy. What do you expect from a dirty Brazilian beach shack?" The other tourists joined in, loudly complaining and taking photos of the restaurant to report it to the health department. "We should have gone to the hotel restaurant," another woman sneered. "At least they know how to maintain international standards?" Carlos stood there, humiliation burning in his chest as other customers stared. 15 years of building his business, of serving homemade pão de queijo and fresh acai bowls to locals and tourists alike, and these people were trying to destroy it all with their phones and prejudice. "Look at how he's just standing there." The lead tourist, Richard, stood up from his chair, his Rolex glinting in the sunlight. "Can't even defend himself properly. This is exactly what's wrong with these little beach establishments." Carlos felt his throat tighten, each word hitting like a physical blow. 15 years of pride crumbling under the weight of this man's contempt. His hands trembled slightly as he tried to maintain his composure, but the shame burned hot on his cheeks. "I assure you, sir, our kitchen is clean and—" Carlos started, his accent thickening with emotion. "Oh, now he can barely speak English." Richard's wife, Jennifer, cut in, her perfectly manicured hands gesturing dramatically. "Honey, take a video of this. This is going straight to TripAdvisor." She pulled out her phone, pointing it directly at Carlos's face. Carlos's heart pounded against his chest. The humiliation of being filmed, of being treated like some kind of spectacle, made his stomach churn. He thought of his late wife, Maria, who had helped him build this place from nothing. What would she think seeing him now, unable to defend their dream? "Please, there's no need for—" Carlos's voice cracked. "There's every need." Richard stepped closer, his voice rising. "You know what? I bet you don't even have proper permits for this place. How much did you have to bribe the local officials to keep this dump running?" The accusation struck Carlos like a slap. His ears rang with the sound of scattered gasps from other customers. The pride he'd taken in running an honest business, in teaching his son the value of hard work, all of it was being dragged through the mud. "I want to speak to whoever's actually in charge," Jennifer demanded, still filming. "Surely there must be someone above this person." She looked Carlos up and down with undisguised disgust. Carlos felt his legs weaken. In all his years of service, he'd dealt with difficult customers, but this calculated cruelty, this deliberate attempt to break him down, it was different. He could feel tears threatening to form, but he fought them back. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction. "This is my restaurant," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Richard laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed across the now silent restaurant. "Your restaurant? Oh, that's precious. Listen here, my friend." He spat the word like an insult. "I own 3 successful restaurants back in New York. Real restaurants. This?" He gestured around dramatically. "This is a joke. A pathetic joke run by someone who clearly doesn't understand the first thing about hospitality." Each word etched itself deeper into Carlos's dignity. He thought of his son, grateful that he wasn't there to witness this humiliation. Shame twisted in his gut, mingling with a rising anger he dared not express. Years of serving tourists with a smile, teaching his staff to always follow the right path. Now it all seemed like a cruel joke. "I told you the eggs were runny. They're inedible," Richard's friend chimed in, pushing his plate forward so hard that some of the food spilled onto the clean tablecloth. "But I guess that's what you get for trying to eat at a place like this. God knows what kind of health code violations are going on in that kitchen." The truth was painfully simple. Carlos's breakfast was nothing short of culinary perfection. The eggs, golden and fluffy, seasoned with a delicate blend of herbs passed down through generations, were a masterpiece of simplicity and skill. Richard's rant was nothing more than a desperate attempt to deflect from his own spectacular failures as a restaurateur. With 3 struggling restaurants in New York City, each drowning in negative reviews, this beachside restaurant, with its impeccable food and genuine hospitality, was just another target for Richard's misplaced rage. A convenient outlet for a man whose culinary dreams had disintegrated into mediocrity. His outburst was less about the food and more about a deeply wounded ego, seeking to bring down those who truly understood the true art of cooking and serving people. Carlos watched the egg yolk leak onto the tablecloth his wife had chosen years ago. Each second of silence felt like an eternity as other diners stared or looked away in embarrassment. His chest tightened with every breath, the weight of public humiliation crushing him. Until he arrived. A sleek black Mercedes S-Class glided to a stop in front of the small beachfront restaurant, its midnight paintwork gleaming like polished obsidian against the sun-drenched street. The restaurant's door swung open, and a tall figure stepped inside. The morning sun silhouetted him for a moment, before revealing João Coelho Filho, the billionaire CEO of Brazil's largest restaurant chain and one of the most influential businessmen in South America. Richard and Jennifer froze, their smartphones halfway to their faces, as they realized exactly who had just walked in. João Coelho wasn't just another businessman. He was a global icon, a name that echoed through boardrooms from São Paulo to New York, from London to Tokyo. Tech magazines had dubbed him the Brazilian Innovator of the Decade, with Forbes consistently ranking him among the most influential entrepreneurs under 40. Tourists who recognized him whispered in awe. International journalists tracked his every move, and tech conferences fought for the privilege of having him as a keynote speaker. But right now, all of that global recognition meant nothing compared to the fire in his eyes as he looked at the people who had dared to humiliate his father. In that moment, João wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a son about to defend his family's honor, and everyone in the restaurant could feel the electricity of that intention crackling through the air. "What's wrong?" João asked, noting his father's distress. His eyes narrowed as he surveyed the scene, the spilled food, the phones pointed at his father, the cruel smirks now fading from the tourists' faces. A young woman rushed in behind João. "Mr. Coelho, about the Forbes interview." She stopped short, tablet in hand. "Just a moment." João raised his finger, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone used to commanding boardrooms. "I'd like to understand what's happening in my father's restaurant." Richard's hand trembled as he lowered his phone. The realization of his massive mistake crashed over him like a cold wave. Jennifer's designer bag slipped from her grip, hitting the floor with a thud that echoed through the silent restaurant. "Your father's..." Richard's voice cracked, his earlier arrogance evaporating like morning mist. "Yes," João switched to perfect English, straightening his Armani tie. "Carlos Coelho, the man you were just filming and insulting, is my father. He insisted on keeping this restaurant when I offered to buy him a chain of his own. Good food and honest work, he always taught me. Lessons that helped me build a billion-dollar company." Jennifer's face had turned scarlet, her hands frantically trying to delete the video she'd been recording. Her fingers shook so badly she kept missing the button. "Don't bother deleting it," João said coldly. "My assistant has already documented everything. I'm curious. You mentioned having restaurants in New York?" A small, dangerous smile played across his face. "I'm finalizing a major acquisition there next week. Which restaurants did you say they were? John smiled coolly, pulling out his phone. You know what's fascinating about the restaurant business? Everything is public these days. He turned to show the screen to the other diners. Richard Morrison's restaurants in New York. Should we read some reviews? Richard's face twitched. This isn't overpriced garbage, John read aloud. Premium-priced microwave food. Oh, that's interesting. Owner yells at immigrant staff and treats them like garbage. Sound familiar, Richard? He turned to face the restaurant owner, now sweating. You have 3 hated restaurants, and you dare criticize my father's eggs? John picked up the plate Richard had pushed away. These eggs? The recipe won the Cultural Heritage Award from the International Culinary Institute. But you don't know about those awards, do you, Richard? Too busy hiding negative Yelp reviews? Richard shifted uncomfortably in his seat as other customers began to pull out their phones, searching for their restaurants. Let me guess, John continued, his voice dripping with calculated disdain. You bought those restaurants with Dad's money, hired cheap management, and now you spend your time traveling, pretending to be a culinary expert. He paused, letting the words sink in. While real restaurateurs, like my dad, are in their kitchens at 4 a.m., making everything from scratch. Jennifer reached for her purse, but John wasn't finished. The butter for those terrible eggs, hand-churned every day. The bread, baked fresh every morning. Your restaurants? He scrolled through his phone again. Frozen food reheated and served at 5-star prices. He placed a framed certificate on their table. James Beard Foundation Heritage Award. Do you know what that is, Richard? Oh, wait, sorry, of course not. Your restaurants can't even pass basic health inspections. The other customers were now openly staring, some filming the exchange. So tell me again. John's voice grew lower, more dangerous. What exactly is wrong with our eggs? Or is this just your way of coping with your own spectacular failure in the restaurant business? Traveling around trying to make yourself feel better by attacking really successful restaurants? Richard's hands were shaking now. Here's a suggestion, John smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Instead of filming dirty Brazilian restaurants, why don't you go back to New York and learn how to run a real one? Although from what I hear, your restaurants might not be open much longer. The health department takes these violations very seriously. He turned to the other customers. Anyone planning on visiting New York? I'd recommend avoiding anything on 7th Avenue owned by Mr. Morrison here, unless you enjoy food poisoning with a touch of intolerance. Richard and Jennifer staggered to their feet, their faces burning with embarrassment. Oh, and Richard? John called after them. Next time you want to play restaurant critic, make sure your own house is in order first. It's less embarrassing that way. The restaurant erupted in applause as the couple fled, leaving behind their untouched dishes and shattered pretensions. The viral video spread like wildfire on social media, racking up over 50 million views in 48 hours. Richard and Jennifer's faces of pure humiliation were splashed across every major news outlet and social media platform. A brutal, unfiltered exposure of their most embarrassing moment. What started as a casual attempt to humiliate a small restaurant owner turned into the most terrifying moment of their lives. Over the following months, Carlos's small restaurant experienced exponential growth. With João's strategic support, the establishment underwent a careful transformation, preserving its authentic essence while preparing to become a luxury dining destination. Subtle renovations, new equipment, and international recognition paved the way for what would soon be one of the most prestigious restaurants in Copacabana. Richard and Jennifer, profoundly changed by their experience, not only shifted their perspective, but became true advocates for family-owned restaurants. Richard shut down his restaurants in New York, admitting his own shortcomings, and began investing in and supporting small, immigrant-run dining establishments. He even created a fund to help local businesses grow and thrive. Over time, Carlos, João, Richard, and Jennifer found a path to reconciliation. Months after the viral incident, they reunited at the same restaurant, sharing a meal and stories, turning what had begun as a heated confrontation into an unlikely friendship built on mutual respect and understanding. The story of the small beachfront restaurant became more than just a viral moment. It became a powerful reminder that dignity, respect, and empathy are far more important ingredients than any recipe, capable of transforming lives and building bridges between entirely different cultures. Have you ever witnessed a moment that changed everything? Share your story of unexpected transformation in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our incredible storytelling. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that inspire and connect people from all around the world. Together, we can make a difference, one story at a time.